and welcome to PTV World special transmission of the United States presidential elections, which are right now counting their results. Our election day is over and the polls are closed, and the United States polls are now, the stations are counting results, and some of the states, some of the key states are still undeclared as yet, and we know that this particular election is all about the battleground states, because some of the parts of the United States are very much certain as to which political party, Democrats or Republicans, they're going to be leaning towards. But the battleground states, even in the last election, 2016, were the main ones which determined that President Trump won, and this time also it seems like a similar kind of pattern. But we'll be discussing that right now with the guests that we have in our studio today. We have two very senior journalists with us today. One of them is Mr. Javed Siddiqui, and we also have Siddiq, and Mr. Nazir Mahmood. So thank you so much, Javed Saab and Nazir Saab, for joining us on our program. We're very lucky to have your insights on this program today. So let's begin with Javed Saab. I'll ask you first that this election sort of rings very similar to the 2016 election. It's sort of a nail-biting election. Everybody's really on edge. The results aren't being declared very quickly, and it's just a wait and see where these remaining battleground states are going to lean towards. And it's, so far, it seems like another Trump victory. It seems, but it's not declared yet. What is your opinion on this?
Well, it's a close contest, and President Trump has reportedly declared his victory over his rival candidate, Joe Biden. And the US media is calling it as a false claim by President Trump. Still, the battleground states result is awaited. So we don't know which way the wind is going to blow. But definitely, this has been a very, very interesting, very close contest. And as expected, the two candidates have fought so, spiritedly for this election. And the election campaign themes were very interesting. Joe Biden was focusing more on the domestic issues, particularly on the race issue, because Trump is considered to be the representative of the super racist group, the white racist group, and he's not a traditional politician, very untraditional person, and particularly his role on the pandemic, coronavirus pandemic, the COVID-19 issue, his role has been severely criticized by the voters at large, and some of the Republicans too were very critical of his handling of coronavirus pandemic. So Joe Biden was cashing in on that, and he thought that the way he has handled coronavirus and the way it has hit the people of the United States in a very severe manner, Joe Biden was expecting to win this election. But it has proven to be a very close call.
Exactly.
So let's see what happens. But the remaining 4 or 5 states, which are the battleground states, are going to determine the end of the result. So
I think in the last elections we've seen, only in the time of President Obama was it absolutely clear, and the night of election day you actually saw a declared winner and there was no question about it. Right now we just saw President Trump come out and speak about how he thinks the election, they're trying to steal it from him and he's the winner. So Nazir Saab, can you please tell us your opinion on what's going on in that front? Then we'll go to our guest who's joined us from the United States.
Well, I think there are similarities and differences if you compare this election with 2016 election. In both elections, the similarity is that in both elections, initially expected winner was Democratic candidate. Hillary Clinton was also, initially media was saying that she would win, but that didn't happen. So this is one similarity, that in both elections, Democratic was expected to win, but in 2016 that didn't happen. But the difference is, I remember I was also watching in 2016. By this time, Trump's lead was clear. over Hillary Clinton at that time.
Yes,
And the lead started right from the beginning, that is morning Pakistan time when we started observing. So, and then gradually as the day went forward, we realized that Trump would be winning.
Absolutely.
Here the situation is that CNN is giving a different number, Sky News is giving a slightly different number, but the latest that I saw was Biden is winning, has already won 238 expected win, and Trump 213. If that is correct, that means Joe Biden already has 25%, 25 points lead over Trump. Now 25 point means it is already 10% lead is there. So that shows that most probably Biden is going to win.
Right.
The reaction of Trump that he is not going to accept and he is going to go to the Supreme Court, that is very interesting. Why? Because the last time Supreme Court was involved was in 2000, as we remember.
With George Bush, George W. Bush.
George W. Bush and Al Gore. And at that time also the Supreme Court, interestingly, you know, in Supreme Court in the past 70 years, all Chief Justices have been appointed by Republican presidents. This is very interesting. It so happens, it's a quirk of history, you know, as we know that when Chief Justice dies, they don't retire, it's optional. So nobody can retire them unless they either resign or they die in office. So it so happened in past 70 years, all Chief Justices of Supreme Court have been appointed by the Republicans. So at that time also in 2000, the Chief Justice was Republican appointed Chief Justice.
Right.
And just by one vote, Al Gore won 270 and the winning candidate George W. Bush was given 271. So it was just one word.
It was really close.
It was really close.
It didn't even get declared for a couple of days. At this point, sir, I just also want to introduce somebody who we've got online with us from the United States in Washington, D.C., Mr. Asad Chaudhry, who's an analyst and a journalist. Thank you so much for joining us, Asad Chaudhry, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Asad Chaudhry, are you with us online?
Yes.
Right. What can you tell us right now, do you make of what we're seeing right now? It seems, we were just discussing with our guests in the studios here in Islamabad, that it looks very similar to the 2016 election where you're waiting for the last few battleground states. But by now, as Mr. Nazir said, we sort of knew that it was going to be President Trump because he had already won Pennsylvania by now and a couple of the other key states. But here we're sort of still hung and we're waiting. What do you make of this? Where are we headed towards? A Trump victory, do you think, or Biden?
First of all, thanks for having me in your show. Actually, the results are so far. They said it's different. You know, like the Nazir Saab said, this 213 President Trump and 220. Some are telling 238. So, but in the battleground states, which are like 5 states right now, Mr. Trump is leading by 3% margin or 13% margin.
Exactly.
And the 74 to 92% results are out. So that's why he's claiming that is a clear victory in those states, which adds up like 80 electoral votes to his count, which will lead him to 294. So that's why he's claiming that he has the majority electoral votes to be the next president or re-elected president of the United States.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Chaudhry, since you're there in Washington, Pakistani Americans, the diaspora over there, which direction are they leaning right now? Because we have seen the last 4 years of President Trump's presidency. We know that there are certain elements, America's closeness to India, etc., which Pakistanis are not very happy about. Secondly, now you have this Biden and Biden-Harris team where Kamala Harris is actually, you know, from Indian origin, from her mother's side. She's Jamaican Indian. And then, you know, there's been this whole Islamophobia issue going on ever since President Trump came about. So which side is the Pakistani American and the Muslim American diaspora leaning towards at the moment?
Actually, like you said, it's the Kamala Harris is Pakistani American people here, the voters. they did not take it against them as a
Right.
Kamala Harris or with a Joe Biden, but they are right now in this election, they are voting, they are divided. Some voted for the President Trump, and some voted for the Joe Biden. So, uh, and Islamophobia is most of the times doesn't exist in the roots of the United States. So you can feel it from outside the United States that Islamophobia is a big factor here for the Pakistani Americans or the Muslim people here, Muslim voters. But in fact, it's not hurting them. Generally speaking, they would go for the Democrats. But in this election, this was not the case because I'm witness of this one. I have been working with the different communities. So this time they were divided. So they did vote for the Biden. They did vote for the Trump. So how many
What
did
was it this
for the?
time that made some of them lean towards President Trump? Because in the last election, when we were doing a similar transmission, talking to a lot of Pakistani Americans, they were very, very much wary of President Trump coming around. And now you're hearing that there's a lot of them are supporting him. What was it that caused this shift towards President Trump? Was it the economy, jobs? What would you say?
First of all, I think you must have observed that the President Trump had been friendly with the Pakistan, so this also made a difference. Then the
Right.
economy was good, and the jobs were all the businesses were good because many Pakistanis are doing business here, so their business they were doing the good business, and when they see the policies that the no more jobs going outside the United States. Most of our kids, our new generation who are in the IT field or professional people, so they are getting more job, highly paid jobs. So they supported this idea, and they observed that Mr. Trump did not make any harm to the Pakistan or to the Pakistani or Muslim community here. So they were satisfied with his performance.
Right, that's very interesting. Now, coming back to our studio guests as well, Javed Siddique. So, this is very interesting what we're hearing, the
Yes.
shift of the perceptions of the Pakistani community in America, Pakistani Americans, and the Muslim Americans also. Last time it was a big cause of concern for them when President Trump had this sort of aggressive rhetoric. And even now, you were also talking about the white supremacist lobby,
Yeah.
how they've gotten stronger, etc. We're seeing this huge race divide in America. We're seeing the whole Black Lives Matter movement. And it's just been harrowing to see that. But yet, some of our views are like this. So what do you have to comment about this?
I think traditionally Republicans have been considered by Pakistanis as very harsh or hard on Pakistan, traditionally. And Democrats were perceived to be more friendly towards Pakistan. So that's why I think many Pakistanis were supporting Joe Biden to become the president of the United States in this race. But surprisingly, one of my friends who is very active in New York, he just told me last night that they held a poll among their community, and they found out that President Trump was winning in the community of the Pakistanis living in New York. That was very interesting because of two things. A, that they think that President Trump has helped them out during this coronavirus pandemic.
How is that?
Because he announced a package for the unemployed people. It's a huge package and they're getting money,
Okay.
and so they're very happy for that. Secondly, as pointed out by Mr. Chaudhary, they think that Trump has not been very hostile towards Pakistan in his South Asia policy, although America has a tilt towards India, and we know that they have forged an alliance. The Americans have made an alliance with India, and they have a pro-India tilt in their policy in order to contain China and to contain the rise of China in this region. But we have seen that Trump has not done anything very strong or very hard towards Pakistan. So that's why it is so. Trump is very appreciative of Pakistan's efforts in bringing peace in Afghanistan.
That's been a big
That's
thing,
a
right?
big thing. And Trump wants to play this card, the Afghan card, in the election campaign. He has played it, and he's going to show to the American people that he's a peacemaker and that he's pulling the US troops from Afghanistan. And Pakistan has made a huge role in making this to happen, because
Absolutely.
Pakistan brought the Taliban and the Afghan government on the negotiation table only yesterday. The US Special Envoy on Afghanistan, Zalmay Khalilzad, had a long meeting with our Chief of Army Staff. So the Americans are very appreciative of our role in bringing peace and stability in Afghanistan. That's one reason. And we have also seen that Trump has not taken any step which can jeopardize Pakistan's strategic interest in this region.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
precisely for this reason, I think the Pakistanis and living in the United States, Pakistani diaspora has supported Trump.
Absolutely, right.
And one of the reason, another reason is that this lady running as vice president with Joe Biden is of Indian origin. That is a factor in this election, because people think that if an Indian wins as vice president, she could influence the policy of the White House, or she could influence the policy towards South Asia, and which might hurt the interests of Pakistan.
Right. Often we see that the diaspora doesn't really consider their home country and the effect that the president is going to have on them. They're actually concerned about their lives in that country, naturally, because they live there. But Nazir Saab, I'd like to hear your views on this, that, okay, jobs matter to people over there this time. As Javed Saab mentioned, President Trump's foreign policy, it was the aggressive rhetoric he's always had showed to be something totally different to his actual approach, except with China. It was very harsh, kind of with the trade war and all. But otherwise, President Trump is seen to be a peacemaker, and he hasn't waged new wars and etc. He tried to finish the war in Afghanistan, which has been there for decades. So his stance on foreign policy, yes, the tensions in Iran did increase, but still there was restraint we saw throughout at various times. So your opinion on this, sir?
Well, I tend to disagree with the opinion that he has been peacemaker or sort of peacemaker, or because if you look at him, the first 2 years of his presidency, 17 and 18, he used all his rhetoric against Pakistan.
Yes.
He mentioned that, we have been giving Pakistan billions of dollars and Pakistan has not done anything. These are on record. He has said that we have been giving money to Pakistan, billions of dollars, $33 billion we have given to Pakistan, and Pakistan in response has not done much to us. That's what he said. And then he also repeatedly at that time mentioned Osama bin Laden, that Osama was hiding in Pakistan and they didn't know, things like that. But gradually what happens, probably somebody advised him that, in politics you don't do this, you don't talk openly like this. So what he did, he was working in a very insidious manner. He toned down his rhetoric. But underhand, I think he was not at all pro-Muslim or pro-Pakistan, because why I am saying this, there are a couple of evidences to prove that. Look at how he did with India in Kashmir. Our Prime Minister Imran Khan visited and came back with flying colors that we have achieved this much, we have developed personal friendship with Trump and all this. We kept claiming. But within a week, Modi annexed Kashmir, and there was not even a single word of condemnation from Trump. So what does it show? It shows that underhand he toned down, Trump toned down his rhetoric, but insidiously he was working pro-Israel and pro-India. Look at Israel. I mean, in Israel, what he has done, he has been trying to persuade Arab countries to recognize Israel, and he has been, to some extent, he has been successful in that also. So what that shows that he has relied on Indian lobby and Israeli lobby. That's how he won the previous election also, and this time also he did not want to antagonize these two lobbies. So I disagree that he has been. And then the last example I would give is pressure on Pakistan to dissociate from China. I mean, directly or indirectly, they have been saying it openly that Pakistan, and recently, just last month, they have developed this quad. Japan, Australia, Pakistan, and US. So what they are saying, they are trying to persuade Pakistan to dissociate from China and associate with the Quad. That means US, Japan, India and Australia, which will not be in Pakistan's benefit. So I don't think that Trump's presidency was in any way beneficial to Pakistan or to the diaspora. Now coming to your last question about this jobs and diaspora received some economic benefits. Now they may have done that, but this is a very myopic approach. Why I am saying this myopic? Because if you look at your immediate economic benefit, look at most of the dictatorships around the world. Economically speaking, they have done good for the country. Look at Pakistan. General Ziaul's period was very good economically. Pervez Musharraf's, or you look at Chile, General Pinochet, economic performance was very good. But looking at only economic indicator is a very narrow-minded approach. Look at what these people do to the fabric of the country. What Trump has done, he has totally, torn asunder the fabric of American society, promoting white supremacy, white supremacists, and openly using rhetoric against immigrants, against minorities. He said to white supremacists, he said, just wait and stand by. What that means, stand by means, you wait, and when the time comes, you attack. So all this shows that at heart, he is a racist president, probably the most racially inclined president in American history. So his re-election, in my opinion, of course, the government of Pakistan is neutral in that. We can't support any president. We have to be neutral. But as an independent foreign affairs expert, I can say that probably Joe Biden's election would be beneficial for us and for Muslims.
Right. Although in last time when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, we constantly heard Pakistan being told do more, and now we're finally being acknowledged for our efforts in Afghanistan and fighting terrorism, which we weren't previously acknowledged for, which was very unfair because of all the sacrifices that we had given. So let me go to the United States again, to Washington DC. Asad Chaudhry Sahab, are you still with us? Is Asad Chaudhry Sahab, I'd like to ask you now, we're talking about foreign policy and all the other things about the diaspora, but there's so many other issues right now in this election that have come to the forefront, especially when Senator Bernie Sanders was in the race. He brought about a lot of issues for the benefit of the average Americans, for example, healthcare and a minimum wage and free college education, etc. Didn't that factor into the votes that we're seeing today, that you're seeing a polarized country, there's a race divide, you're seeing people very concerned about their well-being as far as their own identity is concerned, but how about these factors where, public welfare issues and all, they didn't seem to come up as much as we would have thought they would?
Definitely, healthcare has been an issue here, and it's obviously is on the agenda of every, each party, each candidate. And then the economy, jobs. Right now, basically the problem was the coronavirus. It's been in this country or in the world for like 6-7 months. So right now, the main agenda was the job creation and the restoration of the economy. How to open the country, how to open the economy. So healthcare is also a big issue, but right now the economy was on the top agenda of everyone. So before this pandemic, the American economy was very good, and it was a booming economy. Everybody had jobs, very low unemployment rate. So people also had this in their mind, that this pandemic, which is now in the whole world. So they thought that because right now the cure of this pandemic, this coronavirus, is nowhere yet. So they thought that once it's over, the vaccine is out. So economy will be again on the on the same pace which this was before the pandemic. So other than that, the election, you said the college. So President Trump, wanted, and he always wants people to work, and work and earn. So so they can make their lives better, not rely on the welfare. So he always, try to convince the people to open the economy. Right now, like you've been watching this one, and during this pandemic, yes, he's been pushing the country to reopen the country and back to the life. So right now the big issue was this coronavirus and then the economy and the job market.
Where coronavirus is concerned, the United States is doing the worst in the world right now, with the highest number of cases and deaths. It's a very high number, and there's people over there who are refusing to wear masks, etc. And they're seen by a lot of Americans as not, the government is seen as not doing enough to kind of curb the virus by enforcing wearing masks, etc. Maybe some lockdowns were needed and all of that. So considering that, it's pretty surprising that that didn't factor in the performance of the United States with the coronavirus going out of control.
If you look at the population of the United States, it's almost 340 million people. So if you compare with the whole world, so the death rate is almost the same, between 2% to 3%. This is the death rate in the United States, which is compared to whole world is the same rate. The only thing, they have more testing, they have right data available to the world, but the different countries, they had different, they try to hide the data, and they don't do testing. Otherwise, this pandemic has and had the same effect in each and every country. You can, if you dig into the record, the real record, the United States is not different than any country. So if you look at the Europe, it's the same results, even more death rates, more percentage of the people died there, more than the United States. So I am not agree with this argument that the United States is not doing right. But the only thing, they have more transparent system. They have more transparent data available to the world. They don't hide anything. So that's why you are looking at more coronavirus cases, more reported deaths. Otherwise, this coronavirus has or had the same effect everywhere in the world. The only thing is to the transparent data availability or available to the whole world.
Right. Also now we're seeing a very polarized country, the United States, with this Black Lives Matter movement. One would have thought that in these elections that would factor in, and you're seeing a lot more of diversity of voters coming out to vote, but they're not necessarily all voting for for Joe Biden, and many of them are still voting for President Trump. And many of the reasons were probably like what you're saying, due to the economy and jobs and all. But the situation had come to a head a little while back, and between the militias and the different groups, the race groups and all of that. But it doesn't seem like that had a huge effect on this election result as we're seeing it.
If you look at the United States from the outside, you would think that, or anybody would think that this racial thing is going on here very on a high scale. But actually, the racial, this problem is almost like the same in the whole world. You can find anywhere. It's in the society. It's like in the society in the whole world. The same in the United States. But if you go in the grassroots level, if you go in the top level, if you go in the moderate level, you would look at moderate kind of racial profiling or cases. Otherwise, on ground, you don't see that much. This is kind of I understand that this is a political issue too, and like the President Trump also said, it's all lives matter, and the other they said Black lives matter. So it's combined. If you combine everything, so to racial profiling is also an issue, but it's not that kind of level that it would affect or turn the results of this election.
Right. So, as Pakistani Americans over there, the community that you know of, do people feel safe over there under another 4 years of President Trump's presidency? Let me just ask you that, because that's a big question that we over here wonder about. Because as you're saying, we only see what the news tells us. So, personally, being over there, does a Muslim and Pakistani American community feel that they're perfectly safe for another 4 years of President Trump as president?
Let me tell you frankly, there's no Pakistani American community or Muslim American or Muslims living in the United States. They don't have any danger here. They have full freedom of expression. They have full freedom of religion. One would think that we have, as a Muslim, the liberties and the freedom here in the United States, which you don't find anywhere in the world. So we don't feel any uh, uh, problems from the government or 4 more years of President Trump. There's nothing the Pakistani American community, our diaspora, or the Muslim community, they don't feel any danger from this the next 4 years if he becomes the next president of if he gets re-elected.
Right, that's really interesting. Now, coming back to our studio guests, Javed Saab, some insights that we're getting that are very interesting from people right there in America. Now, how about immigration? We also saw that President Trump put a ban on several Muslim countries for immigration and H-1B visas. This is mostly, it wasn't, that was for curbing terrorism, and then part of it was also to bring jobs back to the United States of America. What is your opinion on that?
I think there was a reaction to it because, and some of the U.S. courts prevented President Trump from making the immigration to United States difficult for the foreigners, particularly the Muslims. Some of the decisions made by President Trump were stricken down by the courts.
Right.
So that was a restraint on him. But certainly, he is trying to give an impression to the people in the United States, and particularly the white race, that he and his electorate, that he wants to secure them economically by stopping the immigration, massive immigration into the United States, so that they could get better jobs and they could elevate their economic status in the United States. And he has given some slogans to the people of the United States that he wants America to rise again economically. Precisely for this reason, he has started this war of, trade war with China, accusing China of damaging the U.S. economic and commercial interests. And that's why this war has intensified during the last 4 years of President Trump administration. But I think looking from our angle, from the Pakistani angle, the president hasn't done anything concrete to damage Pakistan's interests. Yes, the Indians have annexed illegally the Kashmir, but that was on the cards. And the BJP administration and Narendra Modi has been planning this and has been openly saying this, and he did it practically. But I don't think, because the President of the United States, President Trump, offered the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, while he was on the US visit, that he's going to play the role of a mediator between India and Pakistan.
Right.
So he's still there with that offer. And the decision taken by the BJP Prime Minister Narendra Modi is a decision which has not been approved by the world at large. And the United Nations Security Council, for the first time in the last 50 years, 3 sessions of the United Nations Security Council have been held to consider the issue of Kashmir. The human rights organizations throughout the world, the international media is condemning the Modi administration, what it is doing to the Kashmiris right now, and the lockdown that has been there for the last one year, more than 1 year. So I don't think that it is being approved by the United States or the Western world. The European Union particularly is very harsh on India on the
Yes.
human rights violations that are being committed by the Indian Army in Indian-held Kashmir.
Right.
So I don't think it has the approval of the United States of America, but India is dreaming big. India wants to be a preeminent power in this region. India wants to be a dominant power, and some of the strategists in India are claiming that unless we expand the borders of India to the original borders of the subcontinent, India cannot become a superpower. So that is their dream. But their economy and the regional power, particularly the rise of China, is not allowing them to realize this dream. So it's difficult, and Pakistan is one of the obstacles, one of the impediments on the realization of this dream of India in this region. So it's not easy to usurp Kashmir for India. The Kashmiris are fighting out. The Kashmiris are resisting these moves, and almost 1 crore of Kashmiris living in the valley are resisting this very, very severely. It's not going to happen that they are going to usurp Kashmir like this.
Right.
And I think.
And it was, sorry, continue with.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that under Trump and under the Republicans, Pakistan has made many gains in the past. If history is a witness to it, then under the Republican presidents, Pakistan made a lot of benefits, and they reaped a lot of benefits from the Republican administration in the past. So we hope that the Americans too would treat Pakistan on its merit rather than dumping it or rather than making it subservient to Indian supremacy, although they are fighting a global war of contest with China. But obviously China is on our side. China is strongly backing us. China has played a very key role in convening the meetings of the Security Council on Kashmir, and that's a great achievement by Pakistan.
Right. We've also seen congressional hearings in the United States about the human rights situation in Indian-occupied Kashmir, and even Kamala Harris, she's spoken up and said that the Kashmiri people should know they're not alone, and if action is needed, it will be taken. So that's a very big statement coming from somebody who Indians perceive as one of their own, because her mother is Indian origin, she's Indian, and that is something that the human rights situation in Kashmir, having Kamala Harris as a vice presidential running mate, what is your opinion about that? Because it doesn't necessarily mean that everything she's going to do is going to be pro-India. Already the Republican administration is very pro-India, as Javed Saab was saying. So Nazir Saab, what is
I
your
tend to
opinion?
agree with you in that, Democratic Party has been slightly more vocal about Indian atrocities in Kashmir.
Right.
Kamala Harris is an example. Joe Biden has also mentioned that a
Yes.
couple of times. Recently, he also talked about generally, giving equal treatment to Muslims. We have not seen any such statement coming from Trump.
Right.
And Trump not saying anything about Kashmir, I think that he gave a tacit approval to what Modi did. So I think assuming that Trump was pro-Pakistan or he in some way helped Pakistan, I have serious doubts about that version of events. Trump's tacit approval proves that he was pro-India. And not only tacit, look the way he received Modi. Modi is the person who was not allowed American visa for more than a decade after Gujarat massacre. So he's a murderer, in fact, Modi, what he has been doing for the past 20 years. And look at the bonhomie, the friendship that Trump and Modi tried to project to the world. So I tend to disagree that Trump was in any way. In fact, he has reduced the aid that we had during Democratic Party time. We got this Kerry Lugar bill. If you remember, in 2010, that was Barack Obama. That was the last major aid package that we received from America. After that, we have not received any, Trump has been there for 4 years. He has not allowed any aid package to Pakistan. Barack Obama did. We need to remember that. And overall, if you look at Republicans, Eisenhower from 1952 to 58, 60, that was the time when we joined SEATO and CENTO. And that was not the right thing to do while India was joining non-aligned movement. Then we allowed, that was Eisenhower's period, 1960, when we allowed U-2 to fly over Soviet Union and spy. And the plane was shot. Then look at Nixon, he was also a Republican president. We kept waiting in 1971 that the 7th Fleet would come and help Pakistan. It never came. 1980s, Ronald Reagan pushed us into Afghan war,
Right.
and the whole region is suffering up till now. So assuming that Republicans have been better for Pakistan, maybe our rulers got some benefit, temporary benefit, but overall for the country, I think Republicans have been worse than Democrats. So my personal inclination is that Democratic Party has been slightly better for Pakistan, and that's why I think that if Joe Biden wins, that will be better for Pakistan.
For
Now,
Pakistan,
I
right.
have to add something here.
Please do.
During the 80s, when the Republicans were in power, in this era, when the Republicans were in power, Pakistan's military capability was enhanced to a great level.
Okay.
Yes, there are critics evaluating the Afghan war, why Pakistan became a part of the Afghan war, and there could be a huge debate on this. What happened, what were the consequences of the Afghan war, how the Soviet Union dismembered and disintegrated because of this war, and what benefits Pakistan had under the Republican administration. Similarly, in 60s, Pakistan was given tremendous aid in terms economic and military aid under the Republican administration, and so we cannot just write off what happened to Pakistan under the under the Republican administrations. The Democrat administrations throughout the history, they were tightening the noose against Pakistan. The Democrats presidents, they were not in favor of Pakistan, and they they tried to perpetrate a lot of losses to Pakistan, and they didn't support outrightly Pakistan on the international forums. So if you look at history, the Republican era was far better for Pakistan, for promoting Pakistan's interest in the international arena.
Right, and it's still a changing situation because the situation in Afghanistan is now very different, and it's going to be different going forward. So Pakistan's role is also going to keep evolving, I think. So we'll have to see what happens going forward.
Long discussion.
It's a very long discussion indeed. And Asad Chaudhry, coming back to you, analyst and a journalist in Washington, D.C., very interesting insights from you as well. Asad Chaudhry, now I'd like to ask you one thing, that we're seeing a huge urban and rural divide where the election results are coming in. We're seeing urban areas in many states giving a Democratic vote, and the rural areas in the same states going towards the Republicans. And this is part of what they say, that Trump kind of spoke out to the forgotten Americans who felt disenfranchised previously by Obama's government, Democratic government. So what's your feedback on this?
Urban and rural divide has been in this country for a long time. It's been doing, and you can find, because this is the choice of the people. You would say is the right wing or the left wing, because the Democrats are mostly progressive, or you can say more liberal people, and because in urban areas. So the conservative, the Republican Party, their voters, they are considered more conservative, so they mostly live in the rural areas. So back to your earlier questions, the Pakistani diaspora, as a Muslim and the Pakistani diaspora, we also share some common values of Republican Party, which is, we are against the abortion, and we are against some LGBT issues. So these are the also issues, and that's why there's a divide between urban and rural. One is conservative and one is non-conservative. So more liberal people, and some are in rural areas mostly people are. So they vote for their party or the candidate who would lead the country in according to their thoughts, according to their ideologies. So that's why there is a divide between rural and urban areas.
Right. Okay, that's very interesting. I'd like to thank you now, Sir Chaudhry Sahab, for joining us on our transmission today. And final comments from our guests here in the studio, Javed Saab and Nazir Saab, just briefly before we go on to our news bulletin at 3. You both are very divided about who you think is better for Pakistan and who isn't, and that's very understandable. Everybody has their own perception. Your final thoughts on Sir Javed Saab on this election? What do you think is going to happen going forward? More of the same or something different are we going to see with
well, you know, these 5 battleground states seem to be tilting towards President Trump, and you know, possibly he could be re-elected as the President of the United States. But we must not forget the fact that US state interests are supreme as far as their foreign policy is concerned.
Right.
So they will never ever tilt towards any country just because to please that country.
Right.
Only you know, they protect and promote their own personal interests.
Right.
So they always say that our interests are permanent, the friends are not permanent.
Right, Nazir Saab, your final remarks.
Well, I think if Joe Biden keeps the present lead that he has, Joe Biden is going to win. And I agree with him that no matter whoever comes, there is only slight difference in policy towards Pakistan. So we should not expect a major shift in their attitude towards India and Pakistan. It will remain almost the same, but I repeat, probably Democrats will be slightly better.
Right. So let's see what happens. We still don't have the final results. There's some key battleground states that we're still waiting for the results of. So let's hope for the best for the future for America and for Pakistan. That brings us to the end of this transmission. After the news bulletin at 3, our transmission for the US elections are going to continue. And I'd like to thank our guests in our studio, Mr. Nazir Mahmood and Javed Siddique Saab, for joining us today and giving very interesting insights about Pakistan and US relations. And please stay tuned and we'll be back.